I held my daughter tight against my chest as she shivered on the cold, hard floor. Upstairs, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses echoed through the house. My own family was relaxing in warm guest rooms, while Mia and I were left with nothing but a thin coat and each other for warmth. I brushed her hair back from her damp forehead, trying to hide my own tears. "You're used to it," Aunt Clarissa had sneered earlier, her voice sharp with cruelty as she turned away, arms full of plush bedding she refused to share. My little girl blinked back tears, her lip trembling. She stayed quiet, too scared to even ask why. I kissed the top of her head and whispered, "It's going to be okay," even though I wasn't sure if that was true. In that moment, as the concrete bit into my back and Mia whimpered in her sleep, I made a silent promise to her. No matter what it took, no matter how broken I felt, I would never let anyone treat her like this again. Just before dawn, the sharp sound of a knock broke the heavy silence. Doors creaked upstairs as the others stirred, muttering complaints about being woken so early. I pulled Mia closer and sat up. Moments later, a man in a sharp black suit walked into the house, his face unreadable, his presence commanding. "This house," he said, his voice cutting through the air like a knife, "now belongs to her." He pointed straight at me. "Everyone else must leave immediately." The laughter upstairs stopped. The smug smiles froze in place. And for the first time, it wasn't me and Mia left standing in the cold. It was them. When I got the invitation to the family reunion, I hesitated. I stared at the fancy embossed card for a long time, feeling the weight of every childhood memory pressing against my chest. I knew what it meant. I would be stepping back into a world that had never really wanted me. Still, I tucked the invitation into my purse and decided to go. Not for myself, but for Mia. Mia deserved the chance to know where she came from, to feel like she belonged somewhere. I told myself maybe things would be different this time. Maybe my family had softened. Maybe they would see her, see me, and realize we were worth loving. Hope can be a dangerous thing, but I clung to it anyway. The house looked exactly the same as I remembered, towering and proud with its white stone walls and wide green lawn. It used to belong to my grandparents. They had built their lives there, raised their children there, and welcomed me with open arms whenever I came to visit. After they passed away, my Aunt Clarissa and Uncle Victor took it over, and somehow everything about it had changed. Mia clutched my hand tightly as we walked up the front steps. Her small backpack swung against her legs. She wore her favorite yellow dress, the one she picked out because it made her feel sunny, she said. Her brown curls were pulled into two little puffs on either side of her head, and her big brown eyes scanned the front door with nervous excitement. I squeezed her hand. "It's going to be fun," I said with a smile I didn't quite believe. The door swung open, and there stood Aunt Clarissa, perfectly polished in a cream sweater set and pearls. Her smile was tight and brittle, like glass about to crack. She gave me a brief nod and bent down to Mia's level with exaggerated enthusiasm. "And you must be little Mia," she cooed, pinching Mia's cheek harder than necessary. Mia winced but stayed polite. Clarissa straightened and gave me a glance that said more than words ever could. She didn't welcome me in. She simply turned and walked back inside, leaving the door swinging open behind her. Inside, the house buzzed with the noise of cousins I barely recognized and the strong smell of cinnamon-scented candles burning in every corner. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. No one looked up when we entered. No one rushed over to hug us or offer to take our coats. Mia tugged at my jacket and whispered, "Mommy, why does Aunt Clarissa talk to you like that?" I crouched down to her level, forcing another smile. "She's just busy, sweetheart. Let's be good guests." We slipped through the throng of family members. I nodded at my Uncle Victor, who offered a half-hearted grunt in return. My cousin Savannah lounged on the leather couch, scrolling through her phone, giving us a look like she was trying to figure out if we were even worth noticing. Clarissa called everyone together for a toast, raising her glass high. She praised family, tradition, and the importance of sticking together through hard times. I stood in the back, holding Mia's hand tightly, feeling the sting of her words that didn't include me. As the evening wore on, I noticed the small details that told me we were still outsiders. Plates of food were passed around but always seemed to empty before reaching us. When Mia asked for a second slice of pie, Savannah loudly joked, Save some for people who matter. Nobody corrected her. Nobody even pretended to notice. When it grew late, I asked where we would be sleeping. Clarissa gave a sharp laugh, then waved her hand toward the back of the house. "Guest rooms are already full," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You and your little one can stay in the study. There's a rug and a space heater in there. You'll be fine. You're used to roughing it." Victor chuckled, and Savannah covered her mouth to hide a smirk. Heat rose in my face, but I bit down the anger. Fighting back would only make it worse. I nodded and took Mia's hand again. The study smelled of dust and old paper. It had no bed, no couch, not even a blanket. Just a scratchy rug, a rickety desk, and a single drafty window that rattled in its frame. I knelt down and tried to make a little nest for Mia with my coat and her backpack. She knelt beside me, setting her teddy bear carefully down. "Mommy," she said quietly, "did we do something wrong?" "No, baby," I said, pulling her into my arms. "We didn't do anything wrong." She fell asleep quickly, her small body curling into mine. I stayed awake, staring up at the cracked ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of laughter and music coming from the guest rooms upstairs. I'd never felt so small, so unwelcome, so humiliated. Still, I held Mia tighter and promised her silently that no matter how cold the floor got, she would never be alone. In that moment, something inside me hardened. I would not cry. I would not let them see me break. I would protect my daughter with everything I had. We might be sleeping on the floor tonight, but this was not the end of our story, not by a long shot. The cold sank into my bones as the night stretched on. Every shift on the thin rug sent sharp pain shooting through my hips and shoulders. I adjusted Mia's coat around her small body again and again, trying to shield her from the draft, sneaking in through the cracks of the window. Her little fingers clutched my sweater in her sleep. Each time she whimpered, I smoothed her hair and whispered promises that everything would be all right, though I could feel the sharp edge of doubt cutting into every word I spoke. Upstairs, the party never seemed to end. The sound of laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses echoed through the ceiling. Every cheer and burst of loud conversation stabbed deeper into the hollow space that was growing inside me. I wondered if they even remembered we were down here, or if we had already been forgotten. Hours passed. When I finally drifted into a shallow sleep, I was jolted awake by footsteps stomping down the stairs. Aunt Clarissa appeared at the doorway, her silk robe wrapped tightly around her, and an empty wine glass dangling from her hand. She stood there for a moment, staring at us, her mouth curled in disgust. "You know," she said, voice slurred but cutting, "you're lucky we even let you stay. I could have made you get a hotel." She stepped into the room, her bare feet whispering against the wooden floor. "But then again, you're probably used to floors. Guess you finally found your level." I sat up, careful not to wake Mia. "Thank you for your hospitality," I said, my voice flat and even. Clarissa smirked and took a long, theatrical sip from her empty glass before turning and walking away without another word. I listened to her footsteps retreating, each one feeling like a slap across my face. As the night deepened, the cold grew worse. The heater in the corner rattled and sputtered uselessly, pushing out little more than lukewarm air. I pulled Mia closer, wrapping my body around hers to keep her warm. She shivered and tucked her head under my chin. I pressed a kiss into her hair and whispered, "I've got you." I barely slept after that. Every time I closed my eyes, images flooded my mind. Clarissa sneering down at me. Victor laughing with his drink held high. Savannah rolling her eyes when Mia tried to say goodnight politely. They wanted me to feel worthless. They wanted Mia to believe we were less than them. I could not let that happen. As the first hints of dawn bled into the sky, I heard new footsteps, heavier, purposeful. A knock, firm and unrelenting, rattled the front door. I sat up sharply, my heart racing. Mia stirred in my arms but stayed asleep. I stayed frozen for a moment, my mind racing through possibilities. It was too early for visitors, too early for deliveries. Maybe it was someone from the neighborhood, a mistake, a wrong address. The door creaked open, and I heard voices. Clarissa's sharp tone snapped out, demanding answers. A man's voice responded, low and commanding. I could not make out the words, but something about the energy shifted in the house. Curiosity gnawed at me, but I stayed in the study, unwilling to face another humiliation just yet. I heard the shuffle of more feet, doors opening and closing, the clatter of dishes hastily set down. Then heavy footsteps approached the study door. The door swung open with a hard push. A man in a sharp black suit and polished shoes stood in the doorway, his face serious, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. He held a thick envelope in one hand and a leather briefcase in the other. "Miss Selena Reyes?" he asked. I nodded, my arms tightening protectively around Mia. "My name is Mr. Harrison. I represent the estate of the late Mr. and Mrs. Reyes," he said, his voice crisp, formal. "I have official business concerning this property." Before I could answer, Clarissa appeared behind him, her face twisted in confusion and anger. Victor and Savannah crowded behind her, whispering furiously. "You can't just barge in here," Clarissa snapped. "This is private property." Mr. Harrison turned to face her, unfazed. "Actually, as of this morning, it is not." The tension in the room thickened. My breath caught in my throat. I clutched Mia tighter, feeling her stir awake in my arms. "What is going on?" Victor demanded, his voice rising. Mr. Harrison stepped forward into the room, holding out the envelope to me. "Miss Reyes, effective immediately. You are the sole owner of this property. The will of the late Mr. and Mrs. Reyes specifies that ownership and all assets associated with this estate are to be transferred to you and your descendants." The room fell silent except for the steady tick of the old clock on the wall. Clarissa's mouth opened and closed without sound. Victor's face turned a deep, angry red. Savannah looked like she had been slapped. I stared at the envelope in Mr. Harrison's hand, my mind struggling to catch up with what he was saying. Mia sat up and rubbed her eyes, blinking at the sudden tension in the room. "Mommy?" she whispered. "Are we okay?" I pulled her into my lap, holding her close, and looked up at Mr. Harrison. His eyes softened just slightly as he offered the envelope again. For the first time all night, the cold that had wrapped itself around my heart started to thaw. I reached out and took what was mine. For a long moment, I just sat there holding the envelope. It felt heavier than it should have, as if it carried not just papers, but years of sorrow, rejection, and something deeper I had almost forgotten existed. Hope. Clarissa pushed forward, her hands fluttering in disbelief. "There must be some mistake," she said sharply. "This house is ours. My parents left it to us." Mr. Harrison remained composed. The will was updated before their passing. It was properly witnessed, notarized, and filed. You were notified of the change, but you chose not to respond to the court summons. Ignorance does not change legality. Victor crossed his arms, glaring at me as if I had somehow tricked them. "You think you can just kick us out?" His voice rose, shaky with anger. "You think you deserve this?" I stood slowly, my legs trembling, not with fear, but with a new kind of strength I had not felt in years. I shifted Mia onto my hip and met Victor's glare head on. "I do not think anything," I said, my voice calm and clear. "My grandparents thought so. They made their decision." Clarissa shook her head violently. "You barely even came around. You were always off somewhere, doing whatever it is you do." She sneered the word, trying to tear me down like she always had. I felt a flicker of anger, but it did not consume me the way it used to. Instead, it sharpened my focus. I remembered every weekend I spent with my grandparents when I could afford to visit, every phone call they answered with joy when no one else bothered to pick up. I remembered how they listened to me, encouraged me, and loved me without asking me to be someone else. "You are right," I said. "I was not here for the free meals or the holidays. I was here when it mattered." Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. "As of now, you are required to vacate the property within the next 3 hours. Legal action will be taken if you do not comply." Clarissa gasped. "You cannot do this to family." "Family?" The word rang hollow in the air between us. Mia clung tighter to me, hiding her face in my shoulder. I kissed her hair and turned away from Clarissa's pleading expression. I did not owe her anything. I owed everything to the little girl in my arms who had spent the night believing she was not good enough. I followed Mr. Harrison to the front hall where he handed me a second envelope containing the keys, legal documents, and a letter from my grandparents. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded it. In shaky but determined handwriting, my grandmother had written, "Alina, you have always been our heart. You gave without asking for anything in return. This home should always belong to someone who understands what love means. Take care of it. Take care of yourself. We love you." Tears blurred my vision, but I blinked them back. Not because I was ashamed, but because I needed to see clearly now. Behind me, Clarissa and Victor scrambled, arguing between themselves about what to pack first. Savannah stomped upstairs, loudly slamming doors as she gathered her things. I heard Clarissa's sharp voice carrying through the halls, blaming everyone but herself for what was happening. I carried Mia into the kitchen, sat her down at the table, and knelt in front of her. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "this house is ours now. We are safe." Her eyes widened. "Ours?" I nodded and smiled. "Yes, ours." A slow, stunned smile spread across her face. She looked around the kitchen as if seeing it for the first time. Her little hands pressed against the polished wood of the table like she was anchoring herself to a new reality. "Can we get a bed?" she asked, her voice small but full of wonder. I laughed, the sound bursting from my chest so freely it startled even me. "Yes, baby, the biggest, softest bed you want." As the sun rose higher, spilling warm light across the cold, dusty floor, I realized something deep in my bones. This was not just about revenge or winning some petty fight. It was about reclaiming the dignity they had tried to strip from me. It was about giving my daughter a life where she would never again be made to feel small or unwanted. This house was no longer a place of judgment and cruelty. It would become a home filled with laughter, kindness, and dreams, built on strong, loving foundations. As I stood, Mia ran to the front window and watched as the family loaded their bags into their cars. She waved brightly. They did not wave back. I did not feel bitterness or satisfaction watching them go. I only felt a quiet peace settle in my heart. They had lost something far more valuable than walls and windows. They had lost their chance to be part of something beautiful. I picked Mia up and spun her around the empty living room, her giggles filling every corner of the house like sunlight. The hard floor no longer felt cold. It felt like the beginning of everything we deserved. I carried Mia upstairs as the sound of slamming car doors echoed from the driveway. She leaned against me, still half asleep, and wrapped her arms tightly around my neck. Her small body was so light, but the weight of what we had just been given settled deep in my chest. Room by room, I opened doors that had once been shut tight against me. Guest rooms filled with polished furniture, soft bedding, and heavy curtains. Each room had been prepared for the comfort of everyone except us. I stood in the doorway of the largest bedroom at the end of the hall and breathed in the smell of fresh linen and polished wood. Mia lifted her head and looked around, her eyes wide. "Can we stay here?" she asked. I smiled. "Yes, baby, this is our room now." I set her down on the enormous bed, watching her sink into the plush mattress. She giggled and rolled over, hugging a fluffy pillow that was twice her size. I sat beside her, running my hand over the soft quilt and feeling the difference between the cold, hard floor and the life we were about to build. Downstairs, the front door slammed again. The final, angry punctuation to the departure of people who had always believed they held the power. I listened for the sound of footsteps, of voices lingering, but there were none. They were gone. Completely. The house belonged to us now in more ways than just paper and ink. Mr. Harrison reappeared in the front hall as I carried Mia back downstairs for breakfast. His briefcase was closed, his posture still formal but less rigid. "Everything is in order," he said. "If you need anything else, my office will be handling the final transfer of utilities and accounts. You should find the financial details included in the second packet." I nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude that caught me off guard. "Thank you for everything." He offered a small, respectful smile. "Your grandparents wanted to ensure you were taken care of. It was important to them that you had the freedom to live here without interference." His words hit me harder than I expected. I nodded again, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Mia tugged at my sleeve, pointing excitedly toward the kitchen. "I want pancakes," she announced. Mr. Harrison chuckled lightly and tipped his head toward her. "Enjoy your home, Miss Reyes. You earned it." As he left, the morning light poured through the front windows, washing the house in a golden glow. I closed the front door quietly, locking it behind him with the keys that were now truly mine. I set Mia up at the kitchen table and rummaged through the cabinets. Flour, eggs, sugar, milk. Everything I needed to make pancakes was already here, waiting. I mixed the batter with quick, sure movements, letting Mia stir with a big wooden spoon that looked almost comically large in her little hands. The smell of warm pancakes filled the air, pushing out the last remnants of cold and bitterness. Mia swung her legs happily under the table, humming a made-up song as she waited for her breakfast. As I flipped the pancakes, I allowed myself a moment to think about everything that had happened, about the nights I had spent believing I was nothing, about the years of swallowing my pride just to be treated like an afterthought, about the way they had forced us onto that cold floor as if we were nothing more than burdens, and about the moment when the universe, or fate, or maybe just the deep decency of two people who had loved me without condition, finally handed me the key to something better. When the pancakes were ready, I set a plate down in front of Mia and sat across from her. She picked up her fork with a huge grin and dug in, syrup dripping down her chin. I laughed, reaching over to wipe her face with a napkin. "This is the best breakfast ever," she said between bites. "It is," I agreed, watching her with a heart so full I thought it might burst. "Because it's ours." After breakfast, Mia ran from room to room, staking her claim with the fearless joy only a child can summon. She picked out a room with soft green walls and a big bay window for her own. She named it her Princess Tower and declared it off-limits to boring grown-ups. I wandered through the house with her, each room unfolding like a gift. I saw a future here. Birthdays with friends, movie nights piled under blankets, Christmas mornings by the fireplace. A life filled with more love than this house had seen in a long, long time. Later, I found myself standing on the back porch, Mia playing with a set of dusty garden tools she had unearthed from the shed. The late morning sun kissed the grass, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming magnolias from the edge of the property. I closed my eyes and breathed it all in. Freedom, safety, the fierce, unshakable pride of knowing I had fought for something better and won. Behind me, the house stood tall and steady, no longer a monument to exclusion and cruelty, but a living testament to the power of love and perseverance. This house was ours now, and so was the future. The days that followed felt like waking up from a long, heavy sleep. Without the sharp stares and cruel words pressing down on us, the house slowly opened itself up. Mia filled the rooms with her laughter and songs. I filled them with small touches of love. A vase of flowers on the kitchen table, a soft blanket thrown over the couch, curtains that let in the morning sun. For the first time in years, I could breathe without waiting for the next insult to knock the air out of me. Every morning, Mia ran barefoot down the halls, shouting good morning to every corner of the house. I let her. I encouraged it. This house had been silent for too long. I spent hours reading my grandparents' old letters, finding pieces of myself in their words. They had seen me. They had seen the little girl who was too shy to speak up, too used to being overlooked. They had loved her enough to trust her with everything they had built. I cried sometimes, but it was not the broken kind of crying I had known before. It was the kind that stitched you back together. One afternoon, while Mia napped curled up with her teddy bear on the big couch, I stood in the study, the same cold room where we had been forced to sleep. The floor still had scratches where heavy furniture had once been dragged across it. The heater still sputtered weakly in the corner. I knelt down and placed my hand flat against the wood. I wanted to remember how it had felt, not to hold on to the pain, but to never forget the promise I had made to myself and to Mia on that night. We would never be made small again. We would never beg for kindness from people who measured worth in status and appearances. The past was a part of us, but it would not define us. I decided to turn the study into a library, a place of stories, dreams, and quiet strength. I imagined Mia sitting by the window one day reading a book, never once questioning if she was wanted or loved. On a bright Saturday morning, Mia helped me carry in the first load of books from the local thrift shop. She picked out a pink beanbag chair for herself and insisted we put it right by the biggest window. "This is the princess reading spot," she declared. I laughed and kissed the top of her head. "It is perfect," I said. Every night we made a new tradition. Pancakes on Saturday mornings, a new bedtime story every night, planting flowers in the front garden together, painting the walls in colors that made us feel happy. We built a life filled with small joys, each one more precious because of how hard it had been to get here. Sometimes, memories of the past tried to creep in. I would find myself wondering if Clarissa and Victor still told themselves stories about why they lost everything. I wondered if they blamed me if they sat in some small apartment nursing their anger, but those thoughts no longer had power over me. Forgiveness was not something they had asked for, and I had no obligation to offer it. What I gave myself instead was freedom. Freedom to focus on the life in front of me instead of the pain behind me. Mia grew stronger too. I watched her blossom, her shy smiles becoming bright laughter, her quiet voice growing more confident each day. She made friends at the local park. She invited them over to play without fear. She decorated her room with drawings, posters of animals, and glow-in-the-dark stars. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Mia leaned her head against my arm. "I love our home," she said simply. I wrapped my arm around her and pulled her close. "I love it too," I said, "because it is filled with the best thing in the world." She looked up at me, curious. "What is that?" "You," I said, kissing her forehead. "You are the best thing in the world." We sat there for a long time, listening to the crickets sing and watching the stars begin to appear. There was no fear, no anger, only peace. In the end, the house was never just about walls or land or money. It was about creating a place where love was louder than cruelty, where kindness grew stronger than bitterness. Family is not the people who share your blood. Family is the people who share your heart, who lift you up instead of pushing you down. Mia and I had built a new kind of family together, and this time, no one could take it from us, not ever. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, if it made you feel something real, please take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who might need a reminder that no matter where you come from or what you have faced, you can build something better. You can create your own family, your own home, and your own happiness. I would love to hear your thoughts too. Was there a moment in your life when you had to choose to stand tall instead of staying small? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one, and your words mean more than you know. And if you want more stories about real struggles, real victories, and the kind of hope that refuses to quit, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are building a space here where every voice matters and every heart is welcome. Thank you for being part of it. I cannot wait to share the next chapter with you.